Good evening, Hell Rats, and welcome to the Metal Mayhem ROC YouTube channel. I'm your host, Southern Cal. On tonight's show, I'm back in the Windy City again. Tonight, we're going to be talking to founding member, lead guitarist, and as Benjamin from Online Metal Promotions likes to refer to him as, the Big Cheese. Please welcome from the band Spillage, Tony Spillman.
That's funny. The big cheese. That reminds me of that old McDonald's commercial, Mayor
That's when we asked who we were going to be talking to, he quoted the Big Cheese, Tony Spillman.
Well, when you've been around the music industry as long as I have, at least that's better than the big ass, So, but that's
big one thing, right?
To say. Right on. So, well, thanks for having me, man. I very much appreciate it.
We're going to be talking about the new album, Phase 4. It says in the press release, a late fall release. Have a date for that yet? Is the album out yet?
Well, what had happened, now the record is released. You can get it in CD and digital format. If you'd like to pre-order the vinyl, you will get the digital downloads immediately. So you can, of course, start to listen to it. However, as we know, in this crazy mixed up world that we're living in right now, things are just crazy. So the record manufacturing industry, there's like only two places in the world, as my understanding right now, that you can get plates made that do the pressing for the records. So initially, it's about 7 to 9 months of just manufacturing time. So this has been done in the process since, maybe last February, when it was submitted. So it's been in the process. Now, it was in the queue. I got my test presses back about a month ago, and the first song on side 2, unfortunately, there was a glitch. It was a big pop. It sounded like, when I was wooden up, and I was like, and besides that, so contacted the manufacturing company. They sourced it out. It was a defect in the plate, unfortunately. So the plate had to be all remanufactured all over again. So there we went into that cycle. So opposed to holding on to it for the record until that happened, we decided to release it in this type of a format so we can get it out during the summer and then sell the vinyl where you would be able to get the digital download. That way you could get it right away.
Were these delays that you were experiencing with this, was that live album that you put out, I think it was in May or June of this year, a direct result of that?
No, sir. No, what the live thing we had talked about, like we were talking earlier, I'm an old guy, and so the old live records, like, Foghat Live came out, what was that, 77, 78? Come on, man. I mean, you had 2 or 3 of those, right?
You could go on forever with double live, triple live. It came out between 76 and 1980.
Yeah, right. I mean, UFO, Strangers in the Night, let's I mean, so being our riff rock band is what I like to call ourselves, Spillage, and I think that we kind of fit in that genre of that age group. We may have a little bit more of a modernish sound, or maybe a heavier tone than some of that 70s riff rock. But that's really was my goal initially putting the Spillage together, was to not recreate, but to follow that type of a format, that type of a style, and so and the reason being is because I really feel, not that it's just, I really like the ideas of each song having its own individual identity. It's still Spillage music, but it's you don't really know sometimes where it's gonna go. We change keys a lot, we'll change tempos a lot. This record, as you well know, we got the keyboards much more involved, so that's what that was my goal. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, you're fine. There was definitely, you could tell the tempo from each song, very different in each one, and you had slow, fast, slow, medium. The keyboards definitely right from the opening song, the Phase 4 intro. My first thing that came to mind was John Lord, just rocking that organ and that sound that he would get out of that thing. Right. So hearing that, it just totally made me think of Deep Purple and John Lord just cranking away.
Sure.
Opening song. So before we get into that, just give us a little brief history of Spillage for our listeners.
Okay. Well, Well, Spillage came from like the right off of my name, obviously, and I was actually started putting Spillage together as kind of my retirement type of a thing. Quite frankly, I was working in music if you know anything about me, as a guitar tech for a number of years and toured with a number of different bands, and I was outgrowing that, not like personally, physically, because I was becoming, it's a hard job, that's a young man's job. And so I was thinking that, I had a couple of opportunities going on at that time. And I thought maybe, this was my time, that it was time for me to separate myself from music. So prior to that, I thought, well, I've got this stuff in my head. I got all these cool friends around me that are great musicians. I'm going to put together, songs that I've written over the years. And then of course, that one cover song. And then, with being best friends with Bruce Franklin of Trouble, and then him, and then Lothar Keller was just another amazing musician and vocalist. And so, like I said, I had all these cool cats all around me, and all these songs. And so that's really how it started, I mean, I knew Chris Martins from, he had done some work with us, but I've known all the guys in Spillage for 40 plus years, um, so it wasn't hard to put together the rock and roll cats, I didn't have to teach them the groove of what I was into, because that's what we all grew up on, um, with the, not just popularity of, the first record, but with the solidifying of the getting all these friends back together, we decided we were just going to continue to move forward. Well, Lothar Keller, as you well know, he had some other, still does much more musical endeavors going on.
Sacred
And
Dawn, love them.
Sacred Dawn, The Skull, different things like that. And, and they were doing a lot of touring. And so I was like, God bless them, man, go do your musical, I mean, this is our job too, And so he and Willie Max, who was the bass player and backup vocalist, they were on tour with Skull. And so we decided if we were going to move forward, we had to move forward, And so that's what happened. So the first record, I had written all of the songs, music and lyrically, except for the Cliff Richards cover, Devil Woman. And with Bruce Franklin produced the record, and and he played on it and sang on it. And actually, Bruce has played and sang and produced all of the Spillage records since the beginning, And so that's been great. It's well, I'll get to that when we get there. I'm ADHD there now, there, Southern Cal, so you have to keep me on track.
You mentioned being a guitar tech. That was for the band Trouble, correct?
Yeah, well, I kind of grew up with them. They're really where I got into the professional music industry. I was, as a kid. I mean, like I said, we go back a long way. As a kid, I started playing music about, like rock and roll. Besides writing my little kid songs, before that, about 14, 15, and I met Bruce and the guys in Trouble when I was 17. Friends of mine, actually, Jeff Olson, who was the drummer, his dad was my 7th grade basketball coach. So we go
really
back.
did go up with these guys. That's
Yeah,
awful.
yeah. When I was moving around and doing some different things, I came back, and this was before they went to record their record. So I started working for Trouble. I think it was probably the summer of '82, maybe. Probably in that area. At least that's what I remember. So yeah, like I said, so Bruce has been a big part of Spillage, since the beginning. Go ahead.
Do you think that's why Spillage may be unfairly labeled as a doom band? I found some essences of that in Phase 4, but I would not label you guys as a doom band at all.
No, we've never really been a doom band, if you want to like doom. I like I said, we're a heavy rock band. Trouble is much more of a doom band than I am, but I wouldn't even really consider Trouble a doom band. Obviously, growing up with those guys and working for them and touring with them and doing all those things, they had a major influence on me. As much as I'd like to say I don't think Spillage sounds like Trouble, I think we had hidden a couple of gems in there in some of our songs that, would probably, have a Trouble feel. But the one thing I would say is that we're both very much heavy rock bands. Trouble may have a little bit more of a doomer aspect on because they have a bunch more records as well. But I would say that we're probably like heavy rock bands.
I would go heavy rock for sure.
Right.
Doom, I would not. But like I said, there was sprinklings of it throughout the songs.
Mhm.
Well, we're gonna circle back to that Trouble and Lotar. I want to talk about a few songs off of the new album that's coming out. The first one being the song "Love and Alchemy."
Now that's a doom song.
Exactly. This is
Drop
one.
tuning.
It's a slower, hard-hitting song that I wrote had hints of doom threaded throughout it. It's got that great chorus, just the way that's sung in there, love and alchemy. And
Right.
talk just a little bit about that song.
Well, I wrote the music to that song, and that was my goal. It was it was in an A flat tuning, and that's to get that really low. And so the whole idea and the concept put together was that I really wanted to be a dark and deep sound with the choir that with the keyboard choir, which I love. Paul did a great job. And that really came about after Elvin had provided me with the lyrics, his goal, because I was like, ooh, when he first told me, oh, I got an idea, and it's love and alchemy. I was like, yeah, man, it's really dark, right? And it's really a dark tune. But then as we started listening to lyrics and how it just melts together, I was like, oh, I see where we're going with this. And so, so that's about the doomiest tune on the record, though. That one right there.
I think if you're talking about lyrical wise, trying to paint that doomy picture for everybody, the song again paints a dark picture, very gray and dismal, living for the moment. Was this kind of written about life in general?
Well, that's pretty interesting.
porch?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, there, Southern Cal. Now since Elvin had joined the band, I don't get involved with the lyric writing. He takes that to another level. I'm kind of like one of those sophomore guys, like, hey, yeah, let her have some. He's a lyricist, and he's wonderful. That was the surprise about bringing on the band. Really, again, was a song that I did have a lot of influence with the lyrics because I was going through a moment in my life at that time that I was just, things were just out of control. And I was staying with a friend of mine out at a farmhouse, not far from where I'm at now, just trying to get my yazoo together, and then, it was sitting on the back porch, and so, that's what it was.
Like
that was it's just like that. And that's why the chorus was the part of wanting to understand that, this is where I am now, but that's not where I'm going to be, and it's not the end, but it's just the beginning. But
yeah, exactly. As was spoken in the song.
Right.
Here in Melbourne, Florida, we have a new big company that's come to town, and they are all about automation and robotic stuff like that.
AI?
When I heard Rise of the Machine, is this a take kind of on what's happening in the world today? Is that the view of the song?
Yes. There's no easy way to really put it. And that's why Nothing to See, which is the second song on the second side, or on the record, it's the second song on the second side. But that's why those two songs go together. I can go to an analogy about that, but yes, to make it an easy answer for Rise of the Machine, that's exactly what it is. It's an area, in our opinion, in my opinion, actually, I can't speak for all the guys in the band because we all have different opinions about things. We're all individuals, and that's one of the cool things. That's why I love them all. However, in my opinion, for Rise of the Machine and AI is something that we as humans, in my opinion, need to be extra special careful with that. That's a whole topic, buddy, we could talk about for hours.
Yeah, that's a whole conversation on itself right there.
Yeah. And and if it's some people will say, well, you're 60 years old, you're an old coot, and yeah, maybe, maybe that's part of it. However, we all know, okay, being, a seasoned American that I am, that anything that we have that's available to us as far as technology, that other areas are maybe 10 times advanced of where that technology is by now. Look at any type of the robotics that are online. Now you can go to any YouTube page and punch in any type of robotics, and you could start seeing that Terminator movie of these crazy things chasing after you with those laser guns. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's there. So, it's not a conspiracy.
Well, to all our listeners, get out there, check this album out. It's great. Spillage, the Phase 4. I think there's 8 or 9 just kick-ass songs on there. Check that shit out if you can. I want to loop back around now. We're talking a little bit about the Chicago metal scene. A few weeks back, I got to talk to Larry Berrigan from the band Hellstar. He's got a side project, Santa Oscuridad. And a few weeks after we talked to him, we talked to David Letherman, I believe it's his name, from the band Love and War, and how they're both from Houston. These are bands that all kind of intermingle their players together. I noticed when we're going to get to Lothar here, who I just talked to last Wednesday about Sacred Dawn. And I was reading your bio. I saw Lothar Keller. I said, oh my, I would have asked him about this. You mentioned him before. Obviously, he was on touring with The Skull, and you guys were moving on. You guys still friends?
Oh yeah, I work with the Qumran Records with him. We're doing his record release show this Saturday with Diggeth from Holland. Yeah, no, Lothar and I are brothers. There was never no animosity. Actually, I met Lothar long ago when he just moved to the Chicagoland area, and I had done a couple of tours with early Sacred Dawn as a guitar tech, road manager things. So that's how I actually met Lo. That was again, we're talking 20 years ago. So.
Right. Yeah, there was The Skull and Spillage, Sacred Dawn. It was just so many. It just made me think of that Houston thing, and like this has got to be what's going on in the Chicago metal scene. So that's pretty cool. Talk about the Chicago, the Legion of Doom.
Yeah, well,
Ron Holzner.
Yeah, Ron, I played with Ron in Earth and Grave. Also, Ron and I go back a whole boatloads of years as well, because back in the early Trouble days, again, when Sean McAllister from Witch Slayer was the bass player, I was the only guitar tech, and then John Smatlack came along, a Northsider. We called him Tanks Dude, because he'd go, hey, Tanks Dude. That was all all the time. So his name was Tanks, but Ron came along to be stage right guitar tech. And so that's how Ron and I, first got together, was working with Trouble. And then as time went on, Sean left, and then Ron took the bass player spot. At that time, I had left. That was the King Diamond tour. So that would have been the Skull tour. That Trouble Skull tour with King Diamond. And so when I moved back from Arizona, Ron had asked me to join Earth and Grave with Rachel Barton Pine, that famous violinist. And so we did that double record, which was supposed to be a Doom record, but it was mostly thrash. And I was always saying, hey, when's the Doom part going to come? So.
What about Jeff Allen of Witch Slayer?
Yeah, Jeff's a great guy. I haven't seen him in a number of years. We were slated to possibly do a show together next month, but it didn't work out. But yeah, I haven't seen Jeff in a long time, but he was always a great guy. I love that old Witch Slayer stuff.
How does Spillage get on next summer's Legions of Metal Fest in Chicago?
We don't get a lot of attention here, Southern Cal, in the
Really?
city. Yeah, it's difficult. That's one of the reasons why our November show kind of fell apart. There's a lot of things going on, cover bands and tribute bands. I have nothing against them, but they take most of the good rooms, most of the big rooms. And then, they struggle to get a draw too, but original groups, we can put together a bill with some of the best bands in the Chicagoland area and have to pay, $1,000 for production and all this other stuff up front, and then we'll get like 60 people paid or maybe 100 people paid, and it just, and it's not about the money. It's just, but you still need to be able to be sustainable,
Yes.
and so, I mean, unless you got some money in Southern Cal that I'm not aware of, you want to help out.
Let's say we don't have the money, but what we do have is a in with some of the Legion of Doom people, and we'll flex our Metal Mayhem ROC muscle a little bit and see what we can do to get.
Hey man, I love to do it. I'm working the Heavy Fest. The Trouble's playing the Heavy something here the week at the end of the month here, and I'm working the Trouble show for that. It's I forget what the festival's called, but yeah.
I just saw you the 2023 West Chicago Railroad Days.
Yeah, we got some live video out on that on our YouTube page if you haven't seen it yet.
That's that was Spillage that played, correct?
Yes.
And Bruce Franklin joined you on stage, I heard.
Yes, he did. Well, he also played. Let's see, which record was it? It was, it was Blood of Angels. We did a cover. Yeah, we did a cover of "Dirty Women" by Black Sabbath, and he played lead guitar and sang backup or harmony vocals in the studio version. And so, whenever we have an opportunity to get him up on stage with us, he comes up and he performs the tune with us.
Yeah, I took a listen to that album. I thought it was great. Very different from this album again, but in the same realm and genre there. I read a review. Now, I don't know if this guy was just having a shit day or what. He just, every song, it was just, I don't even know where he's coming from, but it was like after he ran out of songs to criticize, he criticized the Spillage logo and how you use kind of font for it. And I was like, is this guy serious with this shit? He's bitching about the font of the
Well, it wasn't actually, the funny thing about that, the reason why I didn't give a much of a thing is that it's not a font. She didn't just get married, but
I wish I could remember the name he referred to it as. I cannot.
Kathy Reeves, who is now Kathy McCloskey, the drummer for a number of East Coast bands. Kathy Reeves was from Chicago, a great friend of ours. She moved to Pennsylvania and married the drummer for, anyways, the metal guys. Darren McCloskey, great guy, great drummer. Well, she designed the logo, so that's her art. That's one of the main reasons, not one of the main reasons. I dig it. That's why I keep it.
I thought it was great.
Yeah. And it was exactly what I was after. And again, and I know you can appreciate this, because the first record, remember what I said, that it was going to be a one-off. It was a thing. So what my concept was an old rip rock band. So what other crazy artwork of a band that came out, from Canada that had some Rush, like right on the front like that. And so
going out at you, first album.
It was exactly. It was just a nostalgia thing that I had in my mind. And, personally, Southern Cal, I don't care what people think about it. But yeah, and reviewers, they're what they are. They're reviewers, and I respect them. They got their thing. But the thing is like I tell my guys, is like, wow, we're getting some pretty good reviews. I say, well, we're 60, and if their views ain't good, then maybe we should maybe not be doing this stuff.
We were talking about those live albums earlier. That All the World's a Stage, by far, it was such a huge influence on my musical direction, let's say. They
were great. They were. Again, I'm a 70s guy, but I seen Rush maybe 12 or 13 times, probably 9 times before 1980. So I mean,
I was just a little too young for that. I got to see him moving pictures. I think I was all of 12 years old when that album came out.
Yeah, and Farewell to Kings was my opener, and that at the Aragon here in Chicago, and it's still my favorite record too by Rush. Is Farewell. So
we're talking about the Aragon. Let's talk about the world famous Reggie's Club.
Yeah,
the gigs going on at that place. How often do you play there, or have you played there?
Yep. I played there a few times, couple times with Spillage, a couple times with Earth and Grave. My hat goes off. I tip my hat to Reggie's. We haven't been there a bit, but I will say that the reason why I will tip my hat like that is they didn't allow the Chicago city, to bully them out of closing during pandemic. They
Oh,
fought them. Yeah, they fought them and they stayed open and through all the criticism. There were a couple of clubs. There were other clubs up north that got into the political scene, and you had to have your ID card and your vaccination card, and it's like, what is your name? Type stuff. So
between New York and Florida, it was so like there was restaurants that had separate rooms for people, closed off rooms. Down here, we had the 50% capacity, and a lot of people didn't pay any attention to that and stayed open. And we got pretty liberal down here. We were one of the first to get back open, which was nice. And but what a whole pain in the ass. So God bless Reggie's for beating the establishment on that one.
Yeah, well, they fight them. They fought them, and they made it through. But yeah. So,
Awesome.
but yeah, I'd like to get there. But yeah, we haven't had the opportunities.
Awesome. Do you have any shows? You think you mentioned you have a show this weekend? Tell us any shows you got coming up and where you're playing at.
Well, I'm sorry to say that we do only have this one show this year left at City. What is this place called? Livewire in Chicago. It's a cool little club with Diggeth from the Netherlands, and then it's Sacred Dawn's record release. I love those guys. I haven't had a chance to meet Harold or the other guys or the other gentleman and lady in Diggeth. They have a woman bass player. But looking forward to it. Our November show, as I had mentioned, washed out, so that was canceled. And December, this is our 10-year anniversary, so we're very family oriented. And so when we get middle of December, so we'll cut things off because it's holiday time and family time, and so we probably won't convene until around my birthday, the end of January. Billy, the bass player, and we share birthday weekends area, so we usually try to, maybe if we can, do a gig around there. I do have a focus for next year to try to combat some of this craziness that's going on in the musical industry. But that's kind of where we're at. After this weekend, we're probably going to be off until the first part of 24.
All right. Hey, you mentioned earlier Karen McCluskey. Is that it?
Kathy?
Kathy. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got that confused in there. All right. I got a segment of my show that I like to do. I call it the rapid fire. We're just looking for some quick answers. 3 questions.
All right.
What bands are on your playlist right now? Like if you're going out and getting some groceries or just cruising around Chicago, who are you listening to?
Yeah, well, I still like a lot of the old stuff, so it really kind of depends on what mood I'm in. I just did a photograph trip up to Canada with my co-manager here, Trisha Mania, we call her. And we were listening to Red Mountain from where are they from? I thought they're from Florida, aren't they?
I don't know. I'm not.
They're young. We met them at the Tennessee Metal Devastation Fest, so we were listening to some of them. I also was listening to a little bit of Trouble off and on. But over here I had to work on some guitars, getting ready for the show, and I had the opportunity. I put on the vinyl of the Jeff Beck Blow by Blow. I had listened to that on CD for so many years, but I finally got the vinyl again. And so I listened to that while I was changing my strings. It's one of my favorites.
You mentioned the Tennessee Metal Festival, the Metal Devastation Festival. Yeah. We are affiliated with Metal Devastation Radio. We have a live show that we do Monday nights from 6 to 9 p.m.
Awesome.
Great bunch of people. We were at another station, and these guys took us in and just let us do our thing where there was no restrictions about anything. With a great bunch of people up there, and I see that festival every time I get onto that website, Tennessee Metal Fest and all that. So that's pretty cool.
Sure. Well, we love Zach, and Raven. They've been great. We were really disappointed that we couldn't get down there this year. But as you well know, like we're talking about finances and being sustainable, I had all my money into this record, and then also I don't know if you've seen the Phase 4 video. We had the full length video that's released. All that's on our YouTube channel. And so there's of course expenses that were involved. So I didn't want to delay, and I wanted this record to have the best overall release response that we could. So that's why I
Right.
appreciate you cats picking us up as well.
There you go. Yeah, that Tennessee Metal Festival is this weekend.
Yep.
And I believe Zach's Moonshine's son is in that Red Mountain video, I think.
Yes.
If
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
They're a cool band. Yeah. So, and what was that other band? Forever Broken. They're from Alabama. Both of those, if you get a chance, check them out. I mean, they were the two kind of bands that kind of stuck out for me there, but they were more of the rock and roll groove type of a format, So
Right. If you could have done anything else as a profession, what might that have been?
oh, baseball, straight off for it. I tried to be a baseball player all the way up until I was like 23. But I found out that they don't let short, fat white people play baseball these days.
No, they do. They put us in second base because that's me right there. Short white guy playing second base.
Right. Well, what happened is my earlier days, I was always the right side of the field. I was pitcher and played short and third. And then when I got to the bigger leagues, I was too small really, and couldn't make that throw from the hole in short. So they moved me to second base. And I can't tell you how many times I tripped over that doggone thing trying to turn a two because it's the other side of the field. You think it's not that hard. It's hard, man. So
Yes. That's the only position I played my whole entire career, except for 1 year. My arm was shot out. I had to play first base. I couldn't throw the ball that whole summer. So, all right. Who's your biggest influence on you musically?
gosh, boy, holy cow. That is
You can pick more than one if you like.
okay. Well, let's try to do it over eras because as growing up, I was a singer-songwriter guy. I back in the late '60s and then early '70s, I was huge, of course, Beatles fan, but Harry Nilsson, Lyman the Coconut Guy, Jump in the Fire. I was a huge Harry Nilsson, and I still am. I have everything he's ever done. He was a fabulous musician, a great singer. He was a coconut too, yeah, from what I understand. But great. So I was a huge Harry Nilsson. I loved Three Dog Night. You'll hear some Three Dog Night influences in some Spillage stuff if you listen closely. So
That's cool. I'm going to listen for that because I do. I had the opportunity to see them about 25 years ago, maybe 30 years ago now. Good band,
I'll give you a hint. The song Erased, second part solo. At the end of the song, second part, the rhythm section is a total Three Dog Night feel.
All right. All right.
All right. So Erased, the end solo at the end. Okay. And then so that was earlier, but then like I said, the '70s came with that hard rock, and of course, like the riff rock, I mean, like Doobie Brothers. If I said to you, quick name, Doobie Brothers, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? China Grove, baby. Da-da-da.
I would go. Is just all right.
Okay, well, still,
I've heard that one, but China Grove too. That's
right?
that's a very familiar riff.
That riff, right? As soon as like at the pool and then the '70s, the sun's out, that riff came on the pool, man. You were like, woo, it was happening. So, but that riff rock, of course, Ted Nugent. Then it got serious. Then it became in like UFO with Michael Schenker and early Scorpions. Once you found out about UFO and Michael Schenker, then here in Chicago we had an import record store called Rolling Stone. And you'd go there, and then all these bands that you never heard of, like Accept and Scorpions. Love Drive came out here, and then you got all their records with Yuli Roth, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's what really set it off for me. And then
Sharon.
starting to work in music and playing music as I grew. But that those '70s guys, Black Sabbath, of course, for the heavy side, but early Judas Priest, you know what I'm saying,
Right.
So it's really hard, but maybe early Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, UFO, Deep Purple-ish. I always like the Hammond organ as well as you can tell in our music. Yeah. So
and that's that sound in the album. Everywhere it comes in, it fits in perfect. It blends with everything in there. That it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb or nothing. It is part of the tune, part of the music. It's woven in there perfectly, and I love it. Great
I'm
stuff.
really glad to hear that. That was, one of the things, because on phase 4 is where the very first time I got more involved in the production of the record. I always had, Bruce as the producer, and and I love the guy, and he's great, But each record, I was like, there was something that I kind of didn't like, or I wish this would have been different. And then once it's done, it's done. You know what I mean? And so on this one, I decided I was going to have a little bit, I was going to be the executive producer. However, saying that, I was still kind of a sissy because I still said, hey, bro, to Bruce, I was like, would you still come in on Friday nights and go over everything that I did? And like, we'll talk about it. So I had him is my safety net, to be fair, and there was some, with Doug Agee at, Alpha Sound, a great engineer and a great, he did the mixing with me. He had his thoughts, and we, would have but when it came down to it, I had Bruce saying, it's your record, bro. Do what you want to do on this one. And so, and so I did it, even though it was like, on stuff. And so when you say that, I appreciate it because, it was not walking on a plank, because Paul, our keyboardist, is an amazing player, as you well know.
Oh, yeah.
But it was just, I spoke with him. I said, listen, you're going to have a much more dominant role in this one, and we're going to attack it, and he just was all over it. So
But like
thank you for recognizing it.
the opening song, it's right there. There's songs that later on in the album where it's kind of just floating right underneath everything in the background, but it's still audible to you and part of the music. I think it was all great. You did a great job on that.
Thank you.
You talked about Michael Schenker. When he left UFO, he was replaced by Paul Chapman. I don't know if you're familiar with him
Yep,
and what
yep,
thought
yep.
are.
Well, anytime you try to replace someone like Michael Schenker or Ozzy Osbourne, they tried to replace Ozzy with Ronnie, and Ronnie was such a superior vocalist, but the truest for Black Sabbath, they were still Ozzy, Well, the same thing was with UFO. When Michael left UFO, so did a lot of their fans. I liked Chapman's playing. I wasn't. What I think happened, and what was it? What was that first record? With him.
It wasn't Mechanics. That's the only one my head
I
that.
think it was I think it may have been that. Anyways, it doesn't really matter. I think what happened is they were at that time UFO was trying to be a little bit more commercial-ish. You know what I mean? They were their songwriting was a little bit more of the commercialist. Now, the cool thing about the early UFO stuff, like the Force It record or Phenomenon record, they would have some mellow pieces, even some jazzy type of pieces in there, like Between the Walls, I think, is one of them. Dude, the last song, on that, you know what I'm saying? So they would dabble with it, but they were still that heavy rock. And I think they tried at that late 70s, 80s. Everyone was trying to do that California glam stuff maybe at that time.
Yeah,
but
right.
Sabbath did it too. But I don't know. I mean, you when you're involved, when you're a band and that big in the label, you have a lot of other people and influences in what really comes out of the production, unless you're Rush, of course.
Right. Well, Tony, before we wrap everything up here, let us know about your media outlets. Where can our listeners find out about Spillage, get some more info on them, and tell us your media outlets, please.
Sure. Well, the first one, and you can get all of our merchandise at our website. That's spillage-online.com. You can go there. You can find us. I would appreciate it if people want to see a bunch of our stuff. We have a ton of videos, well over 100 live videos and studio videos and stuff on our YouTube page, which is Spillage Rocks at YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and do Spillage Rocks, you can find us on Facebook. And if you use that type of a format, I'm not crazy about it, but I post some funny things on there every now and then. And if it's really hard to find anything from there, you can just Google my name and go through all the police records and everything like that, and then I might come up, and you can just contact me correctly,
We when we do our show description for our YouTube posts, We'll have all of those listed down at the bottom of the description for you so that the fans can take a look at everything. So again, the new album, Phase 4 from hard rock in Chicago band Spillage. Tony, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Best of luck with everything.
Man, Southern Cal, you and your producer, I appreciate you guys, man. Anytime you'd like to call back and like see what the weather's doing up here, like maybe like December when you're
right. It's just starting to turn this weekend. It's finally turning. This is what this is all about going on here. So this weekend, if you do see Lothar, please tell him I said hello. What a great interview it was with him, and what a great interview it's been with you tonight. Totally my pleasure. Thank you, Tony.
Dude, man, it's been mine as well. You guys be safe out there, and I'll look forward to meeting up with you again.
Awesome. Hey, for Metal Mayhem ROC YouTube channel, I'm Southern Cal.
Metal for life.
Thank you for listening to Metal Mayhem ROC. Check out our website at metalmayhemroc.com for information on podcasts, archives, links to all our live radio shows, and all sorts of info. Please like, follow, and share with everyone, even your non-metal friends. And always remember to keep it heavy.